All right. Hey, Spencer. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday of all days.
That's right. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, sure thing. So let's just start with a quick introduction of who you are, and just for the if the listeners don't know, and then we'll get into the fun stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm actually a board certified family physician and also obesity medicine physician. I grew up in Michigan. Dad was a biology teacher and also wrestling football coach. And I grew up with an older brother really in athletics. And the short story is basically my brother is really good at athletics, and I came into high school right after he graduated and went on to wrestle for Michigan State. And I thought I was going to be awesome, and I wasn't great at first, and I thought I was just going to be good because of my last name. So I got into nutrition and exercise science, and by the time I was a junior, I ended up becoming a state champ in wrestling and all-state football and all that stuff. But started off JV my freshman year, whereas my brother was already a state champ that year. So
You're walking in his shadow.
yeah, and so I really got into nutrition and exercise science, and that helped. And my dad was also a biology and chemistry teacher, and into nutrition as well. And then went to college, wrestled originally went to play football at Michigan State. Long story short, I ended up wrestling as UNC Chapel Hill's heavyweight for 3 years. Did pretty well, and used the same exercise nutrition science to become good at wrestling and football. But wanted to use that information and spread it across the general population to improve their health. So I wanted to go to medical school. My brother decided to go to medical school as well. So I went to Virginia Tech's osteopathic medical school, and basically decided to use lifestyle as medicine. So went to residency, so 4 years of medical school, then 3 years of residency is the training, and I did family medicine, and now I'm board certified in both family and obesity medicine, and trying to use the exercise and nutrition science that I used for performance, but now for general population for health purposes. So this is where I am.
That's awesome. And you're also, what's your role exactly at examine.com?
Yeah, so I'm their medical editor. I was actually like their director, the head honcho of them for a little bit, but it was too hard to kind of juggle that along with my clinical practice. So I just said, hey, why don't I just kind of do the medical editing, making sure a lot of their stuff is more clinically relevant as opposed to bench research type of stuff. So like, for example, some random supplement that's out there may have some little pilot study in rats of some sort and showing some sort of benefit. So I basically sit back and go, yeah, but is this really clinically relevant? If I had a patient, would I tell them to do this?
Maybe like 7 keto or something like that.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do. I don't do as much with them anymore, but I'm still there as a medical editor to help them out in that regard.
That's cool. And I was thinking that for this podcast that, because, I've talked to myself on a lot of different subjects and had a lot of different people talking on a lot of different subjects, but one area that I don't think there's ever really been a podcast on is just supplements in general. I've written a lot about it, but so I thought that, given your involvement in Examine and just given your knowledge, especially with weight loss, which is, it's probably it's a bigger button than muscle building, but those would be the two areas that people are most concerned with. That we would dive into some supplement stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
A lot of my patients ask about supplements too, so it's a good thing to have some knowledge in that realm other than Dr. Oz's recommendations. So
yeah, but he's a doctor, man.
That's true.
All right, so let's stop at the top here. So I get asked a lot about, just because it's pushed so much, there's just so much marketing on it these days on testosterone levels. Are your testosterone levels low? Raising testosterone levels, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess this is a two-part question. One is, are there any legitimate natural ways to boost testosterone levels enough that is significant in any way? And the second part of that is does that really even matter? Like in the bigger picture, even if you could increase your testosterone naturally by 10%, who cares? Or is it something worthwhile?
Right. No, that's a great question. In fact, that's something that, my brother's an endocrine fellow right now, and I get a lot into endocrinology with my patients. And one of the things on the internet are guys asking, hey, I heard this supplement may increase my testosterone by 10%, or eating more saturated fat, this and that.
Yeah.
And the short answer is that basically, if you're within the normal levels, increasing by small percentages in the physiologic range probably won't matter in the long run.
Right.
The long answer is that it may depend. So if for example, I did a natural bodybuilding contest last year, and I went from a testosterone of 600, which is right smack dab in the middle of the normal range. With normal range is anywhere from like 300 to 1,000, and so I was like right in the middle.
Yeah.
I went from 600 down to 200, and I don't know if it was 240 or 260,
Damn.
and I could feel it though, and that was at the end of my cut. So, from a clinical standpoint, just not eating, people that do intermittent fasting, it's not the actual intermittent fasting that's making their testosterone levels lower. It's the fact that they're intermittent fasting too much, meaning they're not even getting enough calories to support their hypothalamic gonadal axis, meaning their brain's basically not communicating with their testicles anymore because it thinks it's starving.
Right. Which would be what, too big of a calorie deficit, or just too long a calorie deficit?
Yep, and it's not necessarily intermittent fasting. People think, oh, you're crapping on intermittent fasting. It's like, no, actually, it's working so well that they're just not getting enough calories overall. You know?
I mean, my take on IF has always been, I guess there's some research out there on the health benefits of fasting, but I would kind of argue that you can probably get a lot of those benefits from exercise alone.
Yeah.
But if it does, I've seen with working with people that if people have trouble controlling food intake, it can help with that, because it's harder to overeat when you have only 8 hours to eat all your food.
Yep, exactly. So, from that standpoint, that would be a clinical benefit. If you're not eating enough and you have on the lower end of testosterone, just increasing your caloric intake to, maybe scaling it back on your workouts, actually getting the sleep instead of 5 hours a night, getting the 7 to 8 hours of deep restful sleep. That may have a clinical impact of your testosterone and may increase your gains in the gym and performance and everything like that. So after about a month of going back to my normal diet, I went back up to about a 550 testosterone. So that alone.
That also makes a good point that you didn't. It's not like you permanently damaged your endocrine system by what you did, because that's also something that's out there, is this idea that if you don't eat a ton of fat, because low carb, high fat is very trendy right now, and if you're on a lower fat, not a low fat, but maybe something about 0.3 or 0.4 grams per pound of lean mass, that's not enough to support hormone levels. You're going to crash your endocrine system. You're going to destroy it. Like, no, you're not.
Right. No, exactly. And that's another thing. Yeah, people are like, okay, so say I had a 600 testosterone, and they're like, well, if you eat a little bit more saturated fat or something like that, you could increase it by 10% or whatever. So I go to like a 600 to a 660 or whatever.
Let's give you the benefit now. Let's say 700, the big 700.
Yeah, so it goes to 770. It's like that wouldn't even do anything. Yeah. You wouldn't notice any difference.
Yeah.
So and
to be clear, you wouldn't notice any difference in terms of
muscle gain, probably well-being, anything related to testosterone, androgen type,
sex drive, and
you're already at a high level. That little bit is not going to matter.
And where, just for listeners that are probably wondering this, at what point would you start noticing it?
If you're in that low to normal, and I'm going to say, around that 300 to 400. Now, this gets a little bit more complicated, because then you start calculating a free testosterone using sex hormone binding globulin, albumin, all this type of stuff.
But just to keep it simple, just because I'm playing readers that write to me, because these are the things they ask.
So exactly. So if you're in that 300, 400 range, and then you go from that 300 maybe to and you're not eating a lot, to going up to that 500, you're going to feel better. And it's maybe, it's possibly not even necessarily from the testosterone. It's many other things. It could be
Yeah.
partly your thyroid, partly everything, just your energy, mood from just eating what you want and not being so restrictive. But yeah, that will have a clinical. You'll notice if you go from that, you know, slightly deficient range to a good normal range. You'll notice it.
Okay.
Versus
And then if you're normal, what you have to
yeah,
start, you probably have to approach the top of physiological.
yeah. That's why, like, if you end up using super physiologic exogenous hormone, just if you took a bunch of androgel or something like that on top of your normal, in the normal range, then you might, and you go into the ranges above the thousands,
Yeah.
then you'll probably notice something too. But
Yeah.
in that physiologic range, it's, at least as far as I know, I haven't seen any study to say it's made any difference.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually have seen a study out of, you've probably seen this, out of McMaster University, where this was basically the conclusion of the study is that, with resistance trained men, the small fluctuations or differences in their hormone levels, anabolic hormone levels, and it wasn't just testosterone, but it was also growth hormone and
Growth hormone.
IGF-1.
Hmm.
It didn't make any, like on the program, the guys on the lower end of the anabolic profile, I guess you could say, gained just about as much muscle strength as people on the high. Like the difference wasn't significant.
Right,
And
exactly.
but then you look at steroid studies, and then so you start going beyond that, and you start
Yep,
bumping up to 1,500, 2,000 plus NGDL,
yep,
and now it really starts to make a difference.
yep, exactly.
And I think that's just a point to drive home to listeners that so these little things that you can do. Sure, if you're switching from a lower fat to a higher fat, yes, you probably will see a small increase, and there may be some supplements out there that maybe would give you a small increase. But what are you doing it for? Uh, and this is something I know, Spencer, because I've seen a post of yours going from low carb to high carb. And one of my arguments against doing that is unless you have an insane metabolism and you just get to eat absurd amounts of food, you have to raise your fats, you have to sacrifice your carbs.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, if you want to speak on that real quick, because I know that you had written a whole thing on that. Why is that bad? Like if you're weightlifting, let's say you're a guy or a girl and you're lifting heavy weights 3 to 5 times a week, you're doing a bit of cardio, and your goal is to, the same goal as everybody else. You want to be muscular and lean. Why is going higher and higher in fat and lower carbs counterproductive unless you have some strange body problem that requires it?
Right, exactly. I think, with the whole low carb, high fat push for those with more of a metabolic syndrome type picture, those with insulin resistance who
Sure.
seem to have some improvements with their metabolic profile with going low carb, that's spilling over into the healthier crowd who could really benefit from the carbohydrates to fuel their workouts. I mean, you don't need carbohydrates to do low rep, high weight intensity exercise. But once you start getting into that glycogen type workouts, kind of like a CrossFit workout, you're going to see a big performance decline if you don't eat the carbohydrates.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I've noticed a difference even training a lot probably with about anywhere between 75 to 85% of my one rep max. So it's like it's heavy, but it's not necessarily it's not a powerlifting type of program.
right,
And because I'm not really into the really super high rep stuff.
yeah,
But even working in that 4 to 6, 5 to 7,
yeah,
6 to 8 rep range, it it pulls on glycogen because if
yep,
my carbs are low, I mean, if I carb,
you'll feel it.
yeah, if I carb up, I could squat 30 more pounds just by eating a bunch of carbs the night before.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? And so, yeah, that the whole thing is to use it for diabetics, people with pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, and that type of thing. So now it's spilling over into, hey, well, maybe we should use this for athletes and healthier folks. And there is some data for that. Maybe it does help some certain people, but honestly, for the most majority of everybody, I wouldn't eat less carbs, more fat to improve your performance and health. It's not it's not a good idea. In spite, I'm right now I'm training for a triathlon and trying to keep my muscle on at the same time, and these carbs are fueling me, and I'm actually leaner than I was halfway through my bodybuilding cut at a higher weight. So
That's nice.
yeah, exactly.
So coming back to the testosterone then, so if there are, let's say there's somebody that they go get blood tested and they are on the lower end of normal and they want to do something about it, what are some general things that they should look into? It could be dietary or nutritional or supplemental. I mean, obviously you can't make recommendations unless you know what's going on with the person, but what are some of the
Yeah,
what are some of the common things? Like, here's your checklist. You need to check these things out because these are some ways that most people can naturally, increase testosterone in a significant way.
yeah. So I have a lot of patients that are like that. It depends. So if it's a younger guy that's like that, I really look into how many calories they're eating, just like what we talked about before.
Hmm.
If they're at all trying to restrict themselves, we take a break from that for sure. The other thing is with younger guys is going out and partying a little bit, uh,
Alcohol,
alcohol, but not only that, but also
not sleeping.
just not sleeping, just having disrupted circadian rhythm. Just it's all over the place. They sleep in one day till 10, and then they're up the other day going to work. Whatever it's all over the place. So we try to talk about that. The other thing is they may be doing too much exercise. They're killing their body. They're going out and doing long runs, and then all of a sudden they're going to a CrossFit thing, and then they're going to
Yeah.
doing some high intensity interval training later in the day type of thing, and they're not even letting their body rest. They're not sleeping. They're working out too hard, and they're not eating enough. That's pretty much what I see with younger guys.
Hmm.
Now, for olders, folks, those in like their 40s, 50s guys, what I'll see a lot is development of something like sleep apnea, is that they've gained a little bit too much weight, and now they're snoring. Their brain's not getting enough oxygen. They're not actually getting into into the deep sleep. And the other thing is, along with that, with the excess weight, there's a lot of causes of the low testosterone. The adipose tissue turns the testosterone into estrogen. The other thing is with a little bit of that extra fat, the adipose tissue, there's inflammation going on at the site of the brain, which is communicating with the testicles. So there are a lot of different things. So you look at it. So younger guy, it's usually they're doing too much exercise, not eating enough, not sleeping enough. For the older guys, they just need a healthier lifestyle.
Hmm.
So anything, if they need a sleep study and get a CPAP, that's one thing. If they just need to, go from their standard American junk food diet to more of a lower carb Mediterranean type of diet, that can help as well. Just having them lose some weight, exercise, almost like the opposite of the younger guys,
Yeah.
doing too little versus doing too much.
Yeah.
So those are pretty much the standard. And of course, if they are really in that pathologic low testosterone range, you want to work that up, of course. But if they're on the lower end of normal, and some doctors may be pushing testosterone. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
These
It
doctors,
seems to be such a thing these days.
I don't know what the deal is. They push and so if they push
Maybe
the
it's just
testosterone,
easy money because it's such a
it
it's
is.
like a hot button for so many
It
people.
is. And what I've seen is that these patients end up on it for a long time. And then
Yeah.
why'd you get started on this? You could have done this naturally. And they go, I don't know. The doctor pushed it. So then we have to wean them off, which is miserable because your body is not producing it anymore. But you can restart them if it's not been too long and they weren't abusing it. So, um, yeah, that's pretty much it. In terms of I don't like supplements for testosterone boosting. In fact, Men's Health got a hold of me a few months ago and was asking me about it. They were, some company had their,
They wanted you to
I think
plug one of their
I think so.
better than steroids supplements.
It sounded kind of like that.
Yeah,
Someone
they push the biggest bullshit products ever.
And so I was kind of like, well, you're going to be mad at me, but there's really nothing, nothing out there that's really that great.
Yeah.
Obviously there are pharmaceutical things that you can use that aren't testosterone that work really well, and I use them a lot with my patients if they were in that if they are in that low normal and they need some help. So, but
Yeah.
supplements not so much.
Would you say something like if somebody has a vitamin D deficiency, is that relevant, or a vitamin mineral type deficiencies, or like a zinc deficiency, or is that just so? Is it just doesn't happen to them?
Yeah, there's if you're deficient in vitamin D, a little, going into the normal range, which isn't that hard if you get a little bit of sun and supplement with like 2,000 international units. That's that's been shown in some studies maybe to be beneficial.
Yeah.
Same thing with zinc. If you're working out hard, you are zinc deficient. That is definitely something. So taking a multivitamin daily may help. At Examine, we talk about being more targeted towards the multivitamin mineral supplementation as opposed to just shotgunning it.
Yeah.
So, kind of looking at that. It's hard. You can test for zinc and all that stuff. I tend to just if you're working out hard and sweating a lot, it may not be a bad idea to supplement with that. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. One other thing I just kind of just came because you're talking is, is there any like correlation between body fat levels and testosterone production? So obviously, as you were saying, as body fat levels rise, we know that depresses testosterone levels. But so we start getting to the lower end, though, is there where you can be too lean, where that is going to mess with your testosterone production, or is that not really an issue unless you're, like, for instance, I kind of tend to stay around probably 8% body fat, give or take. Kind of depends on, how I've eaten on a week to week basis, because little things matter. I mean, I don't get blood tested because I don't really have any reason to. Although I
Right.
could just do it for fun. I don't have any symptoms of low testosterone, but I know that there are. It's just something I see out there in the random chatter of the fitness space, of that this idea that it's just unhealthy to be under 10% body fat for any period of time. And I see that more as an excuse of people that are too undisciplined to do it. But what's your
Yeah.
take on that?
Yeah, so actually there is a mechanism, and the threshold may be different for different people. So
Hmm.
like for instance, my brother, I don't know if this is from epigenetics or what, from young age, he's always been lean, like very lean, with good six pack and everything like that. And he's gone up and down with his testosterone just when we tested it for whatever reason. Um, Due to probably sleep and residency and training. But like other people, if they were that lean, they may have they may not be able to support testosterone levels. And the mechanism is leptin. I'm sure you've heard of leptin, but
Sure.
the leptin is secreted by your adipose tissue. So if you get down to a low level of body fat, your leptin's going to be very low. And there's a mechanism with the brain and your hypothalamus and pituitary and communication to your testicles that if you don't have any leptin, there's this decrease in that permissive effect of that communication. So the other thing is, though, the people have been dieting so much to get down to those body fat levels, and so your current caloric intake dictates how much leptin you create as well too. So
Sure.
it's kind of a
And
confound.
carbohydrate intake is relevant also, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. So you have a few things here kind of playing a role into it. Those that maybe have been sitting at a low body fat and kind of maintaining that, they may be fine.
yeah. I've also
But
kind of worked my calories up to. I haven't really tried to push them beyond 3,000 a day, but maybe my average intake is 2,800 a day. I'm 190 pounds.
yeah, so that you maybe you probably fine. Someone else maybe if they went down to that level, they may not. So yeah, it is true. So the thing is, the people that are like contest ready, shredded lean,
Well, yeah, sure.
if if someone can maintain that year round,
Without drugs, no, they can't. Like
right?
I've tried. I've tried to make.
That,
I've gotten down to. I mean, it's hard to really know because I didn't get Dexed, but
right,
where there's not much left. Like you
right,
can't pinch anything anywhere. And I tried to maintain that
yeah,
for about a month, and I found that my calories, I couldn't get them over 2,400 without
yeah,
gaining fat. I
yeah,
didn't feel good. It just didn't work.
exactly. And so, if they're maintaining that, it would be questionable whether they're using exogenous
Yeah.
hormones to maintain. I mean, I can't say because my brother looks pretty good and maintains it with a healthy range. Although he is at the lower end of normal a lot of times when we test this testosterone. But other people that they may have to maintain a higher body fat percentage in order to keep their hypogonadal pituitary axis maintained there. So, yeah.
I guess the takeaway there is if you're going to be if you want to stay really lean and you are maybe experiencing symptoms of low T or you're worried about it, then you can go get blood tests and find out where you're at, and then like Spencer was saying, you can slowly increase calories. It's called known as reverse dieting, where you are basically, the idea is you're trying to speed up your metabolism, you're trying to get your body to just burn more energy without putting on fat. So that's kind of like how you can work your calories up. And but I guess Spencer, some people though, their bodies just might not like being at a certain body fat level, huh?
Yep, exactly. And I don't know if it's truly been teased out of
Yeah, I
why,
haven't
but
seen any.
I think there's definitely epigenetic type of things, even maybe things that your mom did while she was pregnant with you, all that type of stuff.
Yeah,
It gets pretty crazy
yeah,
when you start diving into that stuff.
yeah. All right, cool. So that's testosterone. Let's now talk a little bit about building muscle, because of course, muscle building supplements it's fat loss and muscle building are the two. Those are the
Yeah.
ones that where the vast majority of money are spent. So let's just go right to it. Are there any supplements that actually directly help you build muscle?
Yeah, so pretty much the standard that I talk about, and pretty much everybody talks about, is protein, whey protein, leucine, branched chain amino acid type things,
Yeah.
and creatine, beta alanine in a distant, not a well, maybe a close,
Yeah, kind of an indirect way,
maybe a
because
close,
it can increase your
right?
workload of your workouts. Which,
Ex-
if you
exactly,
push yourself, then the more weight you add over time, the bigger you're stronger and bigger you're going to get.
exactly. So whenever anybody asks me about supplements, it's my go-to is generally whey protein. I know the vegans tend to get mad at me for recommending that
What
because
do you think about like a brown rice pea blend for them?
oh yeah, I think it's great. I mean, the thing is, a lot of them. In fact, one of my doctor buddies, who's a vegan, he's a bariatric surgeon, smart guy, really into nutrition. He just doesn't think people need that much protein. And it's true. I don't think people need it. But if your goal is to gain muscle in it, that's your goal. Not necessarily longevity for life. Just trying to see
Yeah.
how long you can live. Which yeah,
But you can see an argument that like it's kind of
yeah,
there's quality of life,
exactly.
and hey, if I make it to 90, I'm happy. Anything
Yeah,
beyond that, is if my body's still working well, then I'll stick around.
right.
But
Exactly. No,
I
and
want to
that's
enjoy myself as well.
exactly. So, I mean, if your goal is to build muscle, you need to hit that leucine threshold, which, of course, Dr. Lehman and Lane Norton and all those guys have looked into that threshold, and you need you need good quality protein, and
Yeah.
I think that's number one.
So that's the advantage of whey. Then it's because it's very leucine rich, right? I
Yeah,
mean, one of the advantages, I guess.
yeah, exactly. And that's generally my go-to. If somebody says, "What supplement do I take?" It tends to be whey protein because of, first of all, the convenience. I mean,
Yeah.
people that don't have very good eating habits, we try to focus on that first, but honestly, it can be one of the easiest little quick things. It's not even, I don't even consider it a supplement. I think of it as food,
Yeah, me too.
and I kind of like
Because
it.
you have it at the office,
Yeah.
if you're at your practice, you're
Oh yeah.
busy, you need to get, you haven't eaten protein in however many hours, and you don't want to
Yep.
have to eat 100 grams of protein and meat at dinner.
Yeah. Oh no, that's true. And exactly. I'm not. I love meat, but like I don't want to force feed myself. So
Yeah,
I have
five
a shake.
ounces and I'm done. I'm fine.
Yeah. I have a shake a day, and
Yeah,
that's tends to be what my first recommendation to patients is. It's like they all have jobs unless they're like a housewife. They're still taking care of their kids and
that's a
things like
job. You know that.
right. Yeah. So if they're taking
That's
care of their
sometimes
kids
work.
too, so but if they're in the office, someone whatever they're running around, they gotta they got to do this and that. They don't have time for whatever. It's always easy to have a jug of protein or just a shaker bottle with some powder added into it to add some water later.
Yeah.
If they want to do the ready to drink shakes, they're more expensive. Whatever. If they,
I always question the quality of the protein
I do
ones. I
too.
don't trust any of them, to be honest.
Yeah, and some of them kind of I kind of like the taste of some of them, but then they have weird aftertaste. I don't know. Exactly.
I don't. You mean every week now? It seems like there's some new news story that's breaking about how shady the supplement industry is.
Oh,
you can't trust. You almost can't trust anybody, and I really don't
it's
trust those ready-made drinks.
it is. It's hard to trust anybody. And then like the housewives. So I have a lot of patients that are housewives. They don't have to. They're taking care of their kid. They're trying to do this and that. They're running errands and things like that. It's easy to throw together a shake, without having to cook a meal and while they're taking care of the kids and things like that too. So that's whey protein. You can get a blend as well, but whey is generally what I recommend first. And then pretty much I go to creatine, which is pretty much standard and one of the most studied supplements out there.
Yeah.
And there's various mechanisms, like you said, with the beta-alanine and creatine. It can help you work out harder. There's also some cellular swelling that may help with hypertrophy in and of itself too. So
Yeah.
those tend to be my go-tos.
Yeah, same. And just so listeners, in case you're wondering, in terms of dosages, creatine, the normal would be 5 grams a day, right, Spencer?
Yeah.
And beta-alanine about the same.
Yeah. There's a couple grams. You could do. I do it generally once a day for beta-alanine. I generally do like a few grams just in my morning shake.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do another one after my workout.
Right.
I hate the tingling, but once you
I like it.
Really? You like it?
I don't know. I'm a masochist.
Like I need to rub my skin, like my scalp. I'm like,
Yeah.
But it goes away once I've been doing it chronically. It goes away.
Yeah, I still get it. I mean, I have, I guess, I guess about 5 grams a day because I have a line of workout supplements, and in the pre-workout, there's 5 grams beta-alanine per serving.
Oh, okay.
And I still get it every day.
So yeah, you get a pretty high dose all at once. Then that's why.
Yeah. True. Yeah, if I were to cut that in half, and then.
Yeah, if you had the thing with beta-alanine, I'm not sure. I take it every day along with creatine and whey, but some people question the safety and everything like that. I don't see why it wouldn't be safe. I don't have any reason to believe it's not safe along with creatine. Just the thing with creatine is if you...
I mean, creatine's so studied at this point. How can anyone say it's not safe?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, if you see your doctor and you don't tell them you're on creatine and you go and get a...
Well, sure, and your
basic,
creatinine levels.
Yeah, you get a basic metabolic panel. One of the numbers is the levels of creatinine, and that looks at basically how well your kidneys are filtering. Well, one of the byproducts of creatine, it'll switch into creatinine, maybe make your levels of 0.1 or 2 higher than what it would be without the creatine. Add that to the fact that you are working out, and sometimes that can increase it, and then also having a little bit more muscle, you'll have higher levels. It may look like you have decreased functioning kidneys when in fact it's not real. It's just because of your supplements.
I've had people write me saying, "Hey, my doctor says I might have kidney disease because of..." No, that's like, do you tell him that you supplement with creatine? Does he know how much protein you eat? Does he know you're lifting weights 5 days a week?
Exactly. Make sure.
Oh no, and then comes back like, "Oh, never mind. Doctor says fine."
Yeah, and the other thing, you may need to print out some studies for the doctor because they may have never seen that. So if they're not used to patients who are big lifters and supplementers, they may get scared of that. So something to bring up with your doctor if you do those things. So.
Yeah, cool. All right, so now let's talk about fat loss. What would be your go-to supplements for helping with fat loss? And also, of course, I mean, most of the listeners are pretty clued in on the basics of like energy balance, and of course, you're dieting correctly, you're in a calorie deficit, you have your protein intake where it needs to be so you can preserve muscle. You're not beating yourself to death with exercise, but you just want to accelerate fat loss.
Yeah. So I'll reiterate that it's again whey protein is one of my go-tos simply for the lean mass preservation.
Sure.
Because of how crucial that is. And so, like as you said, yeah, they're going to need to be in a caloric deficit. I I want them having that strong leucine rich protein because of how well it helps you retain that lean mass.
Right.
Beyond that, though, I'm a big supporter of caffeine. It's got a
Hmm.
lot, the data behind caffeine is very good, not only for a little bit of the fat loss, but just performance. So if you're in a caloric deficit, you're going to need a little bit of extra help in working out.
Yeah.
So like for my bodybuilding competition, I got down. I think I was down to like 2,200 calories at one point. I mean, and I'm used to right now. I'm getting 35 to like 4,000 calories a day.
Wow.
So like, you can imagine that I was just so tired. But the one thing that was able to help me was a little bit of caffeine.
Yeah.
Um, so the other thing is, is there something else? Are you going to be burning the fat peripherally, meaning actually helping you burn the fat versus something centrally acting, meaning
Right. Increasing energy expenditure. Yeah.
yeah, so decreasing your appetite versus actually increasing your peripheral burning. So there's some things out there that can help. I mean, the caffeine may have both. Maybe it will. Some people think it does help with appetite.
Well, I guess there's some research on that if you raise adrenaline and noradrenaline levels, that alone can decrease
Yep.
appetite.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why that's thought to be how maybe caffeine helps. Obviously, getting more fiber and helping you fill up your stomach, glucagon and supplements and that type of stuff can help with your appetite. From a actual peripheral fat burning standpoint, things like that Dr. Oz pushes, things like raspberry ketone. I don't know. The data is not very good behind that. Green coffee bean.
Yeah. Garcinia cambogia.
Yeah, those types of things. The effects are modest when you start looking at human studies. Green tea extract's pretty good, and that's one of the more research things when they
Yeah.
pile all these things together. I tend not to use a lot of them in clinical practice because of this. So, like, there are a few drugs that are used for obesity that have a lot of clinical data behind them, and they're potent. And I got some people maintaining 100-pound weight loss over a few years, whereas like a supplement, I would probably use that maybe in bodybuilders.
Yeah.
At the end of when they have the last few pounds to lose, maybe, and anything can help. So like yohimbine or something like that.
Yeah.
But
what about something like synephrine?
that can have some of the same centrally acting appetite suppression as well, and some of that type of stuff. And that
5-HTP seems to be good for that as well. A lot of people when they take it with food.
Yeah, and so actually there are some obesity doctors that use that along with something like phentermine, which is another centrally acting agent to help with appetite. They hit in a few different receptors in the brain. So I'm careful about supplements that have those mechanisms because they're not studied as well.
Yeah.
And, as a physician, I got to be careful about what I recommend because.
Sure.
And like you said, you never know what you get when you recommend supplements.
That's also a problem. They go out and try to buy it, and it's Fortunately, if they get lucky, it's just like they're not getting something harmful, but it's just rice flour.
Yeah, well, there's some reports of supplements that are reported fat burners having sibutramine in it, which is a weight loss drug that was taken off the market in 2010 due to cardiac adverse effects and events. So I'm very careful about the fat burners. I pretty much stick to caffeine. 5-HTP does have some things with like especially carb craving and probably some of that central appetite suppressing effect too.
Yeah.
And then I have used yohimbine and forskolin in the past during my bodybuilding competition right at the end because
Yeah.
I was like, I was,
Also, it's that last stubborn fat. It's such a
yeah.
bitch.
So that, yeah, and so it's like, well, you know, these aren't they're the ones that tend to have the most evidence behind them, as far
Yeah.
as I know, for fat burning. And I was like, well, I'm doing my diet pretty much as well as I can. I'll try anything as long you got to be careful with the yohimbine though. Some people get due to its various adrenergic effects. You got to be careful with your blood pressure and other cardiac stuff. But
Yeah.
if you use it in safe doses, I would, if you do it, I would work with a doctor that knows how to use it. But just be very careful because I've seen some bad things happen with people take too high of doses of that.
Yeah, yeah, I've written about yohimbine, and I think the standard dosage is like zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2 milligrams per kilogram of weight. But if like start on the low end of that
Yeah,
and assess tolerance, and
yeah,
don't abuse it because you have, like you said, uh, it can. And I rarely hear from people that they get any adverse effects. Some people just get a little bit jittery, and then say, well, just don't take it then.
yeah, exactly. So that's kind of my thing with fat loss. It's biggest thing is the lean mass retention. That's why I say the whey protein, even though people don't get excited about that. But
Yeah.
then once you get down to that level, and you just want that extra little bit. I talk about caffeine, yohimbine, forskolin.
I mean that's funny. The fat loss product that I have. The formulation is you have synephrine, naringin, hesperidin, which those are all the naringin, hesperidin are they're in the same fruit, the bitter orange extract, and there's some
Yeah,
research on that increasing basal metabolic rate, 5-HTP, salicin for the blood flow effects, and then forskolin and then hordenine also is different. But what you're talking about are like that's what we kind of narrowed down as all right. Well, there is enough research on these to where there's it's very likely that it's going to help, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback, especially from experienced bodybuilders, like what you're talking about, where
yeah,
they know what they're doing and they know how their body responds, they know how to diet, and where they'll come back. Like probably the most common, like from those types of people like you, is when you put it all together with caffeine. We left caffeine out of the formulation just because
so
I
you can
like.
drink some coffee.
Yeah, seriously, that's why. I mean,
Yeah,
I always hated that about fat loss products, even if the formulations are okay. That I don't want 200 milligrams of caffeine from pills. I want pre-workout. I mean, I don't drink
yeah,
coffee. I wish I liked it, but yeah, I've heard from quite a few people that were like prepping for shows and stuff, where they noticed that with the supplementation with caffeine, they saw maybe about a half a pound extra weight loss a week, somewhere between a quarter and a half pound extra weight loss a week, which makes sense when you look at the numbers of what those things should do.
yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right. So then I guess just to recap people. So because people go on Amazon, they go look for fat loss products, and they're going to see Garcinia cambogia. They're going to see, and again, that's like you look at the research on that. It's just not very good. I mean, I don't think it's enough to sell it at all.
No, no, no.
And green coffee extracts also very popular. You'd say don't waste your money on that, or
Wouldn't waste the money.
yeah,
Nope. Or yeah, or raspberry ketone.
raspberry ketones. Carnitine kind of had its 15 minutes of fame for fat loss.
Yeah, I mean it would make sense, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like like iodiamine, it increase like you feel hotter, but it doesn't help you lose fat. Like what?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is actually funny that a lot of companies they include iodiamine in their fat loss supplements just so you feel like, oh, this must be doing something.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think that's why they put a lot of caffeine in it. That's pre-workouts a lot of times have a lot of that, and I think it's similar to which actually caffeine is one of the best things for
Yeah,
for workout
I love
performance.
caffeine. Thank
It,
God that
it's
caffeine doesn't destroy you as long as you don't abuse it.
Yeah, no, it's I mean it's one of the most well studied and best things out there for workout performance and things like that. But a lot of these places put a ton of it in just to make you feel it, and it's they pixie dust the rest of their.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the prop blend scam of whatever's first in that prop blend could be 98% of the entire blend, and it's always going to be something cheap that they just load up. Or there
Exactly.
are manufacturers out there. I mean, I know from being in the business that plenty of manufacturers out there that don't care. They'll do anything you want. Like you like that thing that came out of New York State, the Attorney General. Oh, you want houseplant and asparagus in your pills, and you're cool. Sounds good. We don't care what you sell them as. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now let's say someone's on a budget. Something I get asked fairly often, and they only can afford a few supplements. They want to build muscle. Let's say what would be, so it would be whey protein, creatine, beta alanine would be your
Yep,
that.
those would be my go-to.
Okay, cool. And then if someone wants to lose fat, then it would be whey protein, something with caffeine. And is there one or two other things that you would?
If yeah, if they were really on a budget, I may still say the creatine, even though their weight may
Yeah, just
stay
for
up.
retaining lean mass.
Yeah, and continuing your performance. So yeah, that would probably be my go-to: whey, creatine, and caffeine.
Cool. And then yohimbine,
If once they
if
get down to once they get down to the but I hate to even say Yohimbi. It's very it's controversial. Like
okay.
because I've seen such bad things come in. I used it myself because it wasn't banned um,
Yeah.
in the competition that I did. I did the natural whatever INBF or WNBF or whatever it was. So that everything's pretty much banned, but yohimbine wasn't, and it has a little bit of good data behind it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
but you have to be in a fasted state. Probably should just
yeah,
mention that, right? Like the higher insulin levels are, the more it doesn't do anything for fat loss, right?
yeah. I mean, I'm not. I think the effects are modest regardless, but yeah. As far as I understand,
Yeah, I've
being
used it many
fasted,
times. I've noticed that, like you said, once I start getting under 10%, and then it starts to slow down. I've noticed yohimbine and caffeine together has definitely helped. Just keep if you're just trying to squeeze out that half a pound a week.
right? Yeah. So I hate to even say like I wouldn't even want anybody to use that unless they're really like bodybuilding,
Right.
and they're at that last little bit and
Yeah, it is a very niche product, to
they
be
want an
honest.
edge. So I would still say I would still just say the whey creatine and caffeine. I know it seems so like, oh, that's boring, but
Yeah, but
it's
supplementation is boring. That's all.
it's
You're right. It
try,
is.
tried and true. So
Yeah, there aren't that many things that you can do to improve performance, build muscle, and lose fat. It's just the majority of it is eating right, resting, and putting in the work. And if you have the money, this is how I always pitch it. Like if you have some money that you want to put into it, there are some things you can buy that are probably worthwhile. If you don't have the money or you don't want to, then you can still do great.
exactly.
Cool. Okay, awesome. So that's all I've got. Where can people find you, find your work?
So people can find me. I have my own personal blog. It's just drspencer.com, DRSPENCER.com. I also have a blog with my brother, docswholift.com. We try to promote doctors who push exercise and lifting weights. And then, of course, I have a Facebook page, Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, and then Twitter is Dr. at Dr. Nadolsky. Uh,
Cool. Cool.
so that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for taking the time, Spencer. I really appreciate it.
Aaron, thanks for having me on. Hope you enjoy a good day down there in Clearwater area.
Oh, it's heating up.
I bet.
Summer is basically here.